Okay, so welcome to part 2 of multiple file uploading with PHP. We've already selected 2 files and we've seen the contents of this array that's been passed through. Now what we want to do is go ahead and process these files. So we want to loop through and grab these files, grab what we need and upload them. As I said in part 1, we're not taking into account security here because this is just for demonstration, but you know, that's something for you to go ahead and implement and do that yourself. Okay, so back to our PHP file here. We've got this line here which we've used to output the contents of the array. Now we might need this later, so I'm just going to go ahead and comment this out and I'll keep that down the bottom somewhere. Okay, so what do we want to do here? Well, we need to loop through these files. So the best thing to do here, well, not necessarily the best thing, but you know, it is a solution, would be to use a for loop. And this is because we have a counter in a for loop that we can then use. Now if you look at this, we've got the first file is 0 and the second file is 1. Now if we had 3 files, we would have 0, 1 and 2. Obviously arrays in PHP are 0 indexed, so they start at 0. But that's fine, we can start our counter at 0 and we can loop through and we can have 0, get all the information that relates to 0, which is this, 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 this and this, and then the same for 1 as well. So we can just loop through and then do whatever we want with the files. So we literally only need about 4 or 5 lines here. Okay, so we create a for loop. We have 4 and then we have our 3 sort of bits of action in here. We have a setting a variable, we have a condition, and then we have an incremental part to this as well, or a decremental depending. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and set x equal to 0, because remember this is 0 index, so we're starting at file 0. And then we then want to, you know, for every loop, check if x or loop this while x is less than something. Now what's x less than? It needs to be less than 2, because we're going to have 0, 1, and then that's it. Now it could be less than or equal to 1, but what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be counting something. Now what we're going to be counting is the amount of files that we actually have. Now we could go ahead and count this array here, but the array actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. What we need to do is count these values here. So we need to count what's inside the array, what's inside the array called name, and we need to count these. So we need to count this array here. Or this, well, this is the associative name of this element of the array. This contains an array, so we need to count this basically. So we need to count files name. That's it. Now we want to just increment x. So what happens is in this loop, if you haven't looked at for loops before, which I assume you have, but x starts at 0. It loops through an increment, so x will be 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, only if it's less than the count of these files. So in this case, this will be equal to 2. So if x is less than 2, this will loop through. Okay, so try it out yourself. You could even go ahead and echo x here. So let's go ahead and do that. Refresh, continue, and we get 0 and then 1. So we know that this will loop through for 0 and 1, which is the 2 files that we have. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and set a couple of variables. And first of all, it's the name, which is the file name. And we're going to be storing the files in our uploads directory as the name that they're uploaded as. So we need the name and then the temporary name so we can move the uploaded file. So name is equal to files, name, and then because we have a multi-dimensional array, this needs to be 0. It's not going to stay at 0, but this will be 0 for the first run. For the second run, it would be 1. So obviously we put x in here because that x changes each time. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to store the temp name, which is exactly the same as what we've just done. We're just accessing a different part of this overall array. So it's temp name x. So now I'm going to echo name and then just append a line break there so we can see this as an example. So back to top, beginner, upload, there's the 2 file names. And that works the same for the TMP name as well. I'm going to refresh, click continue, we get the temporary name as well. So we are pretty much nearly done. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly go ahead and actually upload the file. So I'm going to use the move uploaded file function. Now again, I'm not checking if files already exist or any of that stuff. This is just literally doing this, and then you go ahead and implement the stability from the other videos that we have on secure file uploading. So the first parameter here is the temporary path of the file, or the temporary location of the file, which is tmp name. We've already established that. And we want to save it to uploads / and then the name of the file. So uploads is the name of our directory. Remember, we're working from index, so we look inside uploads here, and we save it as, we're concatenating on name, which is the name of the file. So it will save it in uploads / and then as the file name in here. So that's it. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. We didn't actually need that again. And let's go ahead and go back to this page and upload these two files. So back to top.png and beginner.png. Click upload. Nothing happens, which is fine because we haven't included any confirmation messages. Back over to our uploads directory, and there we go. We've got our two files have been uploaded. Perfect. So this is basically the solution to multiple file uploading in PHP. However, the one thing that we haven't done is made this a bit more flexible. Now you may want to go ahead and try and implement this, but you may want to stay safe because IE doesn't support this. You could even include a browser check to include different fields depending on your user's browser. I'm not going to go into that in this tutorial, but there are ways to do that. So at the moment the solution is less than ideal if we have, say, 4 files. We could of course just duplicate this down, and our code at the moment would handle this because we're counting the amount of files that we're uploading. So doing that would work. It would allow you then not to have to modify any of your PHP code, and your user would now have 4 lovely input fields to go ahead and choose files from. However, this is extremely annoying. So it would be a perfect solution if we could just have one and then allow the user to click, let me just refresh, allow the user to click and highlight the amount of files they wanted to upload. What we're going to do is we're going to implement a simple attribute which is going to allow us to do that, and that is multiple, and that's all we need. Basically this, as I said, is not supported in IE and I think in Opera at the time of recording. I'm using Chrome to test, so that's fine, it works in Chrome. So now let's go ahead and refresh. Again, refresh there. Now you'll notice that the difference now is it says choose files instead of choose file like it did before. That means when we click it we get the same action. However, I can highlight a couple of files. You can see we've got the 2 file names down here. Go ahead and hit open and it says 2 files, and it's the little tooltip is telling us the files that we've selected. So what happens when I go ahead and click upload here? Well, in actual fact we get exactly the same functionality or exactly the same structure to this array as we did with including 2 of these. As long as we've got these 2 square brackets to signify this array, it will work. So the same process will happen. It will check if this is set, blah blah blah, create this files variable here that holds the contents of this array. We loop through for the count. They're exactly the same because we've got 2 files within here. So it loops twice. It gets the name the same because the structure of the inner array is the same, and then it moves the uploaded files to our uploaded directory. So let's just go ahead and delete these files so we can re-upload them. So just to clarify, this is now empty. We have implemented this multiple attribute and we've kept the same name for this. We've selected 2 files. Let me just go ahead and do it again. So we've selected 2 files, click upload, nothing happens because again we don't have a confirmation message. But if we go over to our uploaded directory now, the files are there. So we now have implemented a new solution to this, as opposed to the older having to, put 10 different input fields on a page or input elements on a page. So really it's up to you, depending on how much support you are including on your page. but the first solution will work with all browsers. The second solution will only work with a select amount of browsers, but either way, that's how to upload files or multiple files in PHP.